Productive Pastor 52, Fixed Schedule Productivity. What's going on, friends? Chad back, Productive Pastor in the house. Hope you're having a great week so far. Coming at you, new episode 52, Fixed Schedule Productivity. Going to be a little more of a 201, maybe even a 301 conversation today. We're kind of going deep, kind of not hitting the basics here. As always, you can find the show notes at revchadbrooks.com/PPP/052. Now listen, if you're looking for a 101, if you're coming here saying, Chad, everything in my ministry life is total cattywampus. If you're there, what I want to point you to is the Becoming Productive course. You can find a link to that in the show notes, but that is a companion to season 1 of the podcast. It's all about understanding personal awareness around productivity and then building out your own personal productivity system. It's $50, 11 episodes, 11 videos. There's worksheets, there's additional PDFs, there's tons of stuff out there, incredible value. But if you're saying, Chad, I need a 101, I'm going to point you to Becoming Productive. Now, you can go get the first 11 episodes of the podcast for free and learn a lot from there. But if you want to go deeper and get some just fantastic resources across the board, hit up the Becoming Productive course. The link is in the show notes. But let's get into the 201 conversation here today. Maybe the 301, like I said, we'll see. There's some prereqs for this. We're going to talk about that a little bit. But fixed schedule productivity. Now, I've got a little bit of a quandary right now. If you've been around the show, been around the community for a while, you know that almost a year ago, I stepped down from full-time pastoral ministry into bivocational ministry, serving 2 small churches, but then also working as a coach with Pastors in Partnership and just an independent congregational and clergy developer. And it's been fun. It's been good. And I'm at the point right now, where I'm having to learn to say a word that I just don't like to say. It's a word that I've never been good at saying, but it's a pretty simple word, but the word is no. You know, what happens when you learn you have to start saying no to things, no to new opportunities, no, just have to start saying no. And this isn't just because of what I'm doing now. I've struggled with saying no for my entire ministry career, and there's all sorts of reasons why I might struggle for it, but you know, there's always this idea of we have to keep things going, or if you're seeing massive momentum in ministry, you don't want to lose that momentum. Or maybe, as I talked about in a previous episode about distraction, we might struggle with shiny object syndrome. There's all those sorts of things that make us struggle saying no. And Cal Newport's book, Deep Work, I feel like it is a great modern productivity magnum opus. If David Allen's Getting Things Done was what started the whole movement off years ago, Deep Work, I think, is how it transitioned from a very management, office-centric way into the idea of thought work. And I love Deep Work, and I use Deep Work as a companion when I teach an online learning cohort called Preaching Through Distractions, and we use Deep Work a lot. But in Deep Work, Newport talks about this idea of what he calls fixed schedule productivity. I'm going to read a quote for you as we kind of jump off into this conversation. Fixed schedule productivity, in other words, is a meta habit that's simple to adopt but broad in its impact. If you have to choose just one behavior that reorients your focus toward the deep, this one should be high on your list of possibilities. And what fixed schedule productivity is at its most basic lines out really well with some of the things that we talk about in Productive Pastor, is this: you know what you are doing when you step into your day, your week, your month, whatever. Now, sometimes people talk about time block planning, and they think that is the same as fixed schedule productivity. And it's not. Like, you can't really do time. So fixed schedule productivity is not time block planning, but time block planning is fixed schedule productivity. In many ways, if you want to draw like a big, huge circle and call it fixed schedule productivity, the smaller circle that lives inside of there is time block planning. Fixed schedule productivity more is an attitude that you devote certain times to certain things no matter what. Now, one of the key parts of deep work of that Newport will talk about is you can't do deep work for 8 to 10 hours a day, and you can't do it for 40 hours a week. Like, your mind has limits to how it can function, and there are things that are deep work and things that are not deep work. Newport talks a lot about shallow work, and there's a lot of stuff in ministry that we do that is shallow work. Now, it's not shallow in its importance, but it's shallow in the cognitive demands that it takes to do it. So if I think about the deep work processes that are, part of ministry, sermon planning is one of those things. That's a huge, huge thing. I think vision work and just kind of learning to articulate theological vision is something that requires deep work. I think also there's a level of administrative vision that takes deep work, which is, some of the stuff that like I talked about in the last episode 51, about understanding growth, that sort of thing. But, ministry and thoughtfulness really do go hand in hand. If we think about the folks I know so many people really look up to, if you want to talk about the Eugene Petersons, that sort of a thing, you see them having a very, very, deep level of life. Deep work also means focusing on a single thing. And so fixed schedule productivity is this kind of broader basis that you approach yourself at. And then the time block planning is how you get into it in a very practical way and saying, well, this is what's going to happen here. This is what's going to happen here. And so like a level one of it, of just, if you want to call it just kind of basic bare bones time block planning, level one of it would be you coming in and saying, you know what, I'm going to devote Monday afternoon to administrative tasks. Okay, so that's the block planning side of it. The fixed schedule productivity is saying, I dedicate Monday afternoon to administrative tasks, but I'm going to fill those up first with my tiny, huge things, tiny little things that make a huge difference. Writing new visitors, like that sort of stuff. Like that's all kind of a bunch of shallow work that can be combined towards a significantly larger purpose. But it also means you're saying, I'm going to save other tasks throughout the week for that block of time. And I'm not going to let those sorts of things, unless they are absolutely essential, invade my calendar and my schedule and my attention, because I am dedicating this space of time to them. Now, that's what it means to begin like forming yourself towards this fixed schedule productivity. And I love how when Newport called it a meta habit. It's just this idea of I've got time to devote to that. And I'm going to save things in a way where I can recall them when I am in the space where my mind is totally focused on doing those sorts of things. But there's also a discipline and there's a commitment to fixed schedule productivity. To do this, so many times I'll hear people say, I need to do some deep work, and they'll, block off time that they find in their schedule to go do deep work, but they're not paying attention to, when their mind thinks it's best. How much time things need to take, how much time things need to percolate, all those sorts of things. Just say, I'm going to go do some deep work, but it might be a time of the day or just a day of the week where you're absolute trash. Like, you're cheating on yourself here, okay? Like, fixed schedule productivity requires discipline, and it requires a commitment really to understanding when your mind is at the space when you need to be doing certain things, because those certain things just require significant cognitive demand. And everybody's going to be different. I lump sermon preparation into this, but there are other things that just require a significant amount of just deep, deep thinking. Your mind is going to be tired after that. But the discipline part of it is this. You can't just declare this, but you also have to defend it and protect it. What are you saying no to, and how are you saying no to things that seek to invade this level of thinking? 3 episodes actually where I jump into this, where if this sounds interesting, I'd encourage you, go to the show notes. I have the episodes link, or just go on your podcast player and find them. But episode 25 about scheduling for 80%. And I think this is absolutely crucial. This means having a big enough awareness of your schedule, of your week, of the things that you need to get done, and only scheduling it 80% full rather than scheduling it 110% full. Scheduling at 80% full, especially for ministry, is going to allow you to do the things to make the adaptations that you need to make. Episode 44, I talked about our yeses and our nos, about how and why we say yes to things and how and why we say no to things. And then just a couple episodes ago, episode 50, the 4 kinds of distractions, I talk about shiny object syndrome. And I think shiny object syndrome is something that a lot of ministry leaders really struggle with. And what this comes down to, and I've said this so many times, ministry should be a responsive job. It should not necessarily be a reactive job. I'm going to say it again. Ministry should be a responsive job, but it should not be a reactive job. There are going to be things that you have to immediately respond to, but responding is different than reacting to things, and especially like scheduling that 80%. Like if you just divide that out, that's an entire work day a week you're giving towards needing to be responsive. So if you jump into time block planning and you time block out 100% of your week, you're gonna struggle with this a little bit. Or as I talked way back in season 1, in several episodes, you have your draining, your dealing, and your developing tasks. If you're scheduling out 100% there, you're going to see like a struggle bus. Scheduling to 80% with an awareness of how your energy levels work and just what the job demands at this moment is going to be absolutely crucial. So let's think about the normal level of what this fixed schedule productivity can mean. Now, you pull out your schedule. You're doing your weekly reviews, your weekly previews. You have an idea of what's going on. You come into your week asking yourself the 3 questions that matter. What is the most important? What do I need to be finishing this week? What do I need to be starting this week? Talked about that a few episodes back in the Sunday meeting. We take that. You're thinking into that. So if you pull out your schedule in a bigger way, you've got an awareness of your energies and where and when you're at your best. And you begin thinking about those weekly blocks, saying, you know what, Chad, I know I need to do like 3 solid 2.5 hour sermon preparation blocks. And you're going to look in your week and you're going to be aware of, okay, you might be good on Monday morning. You might be terrible on Monday morning. Your church might have a lot of business kind of stuff to attend to on Monday morning, and you're going to be interrupted constantly to take care of that. So, that's a trash time for a deep work block. But here are the times that do work well for that, and that gets your schedule priority. Now, one of the questions that comes up all the time in productive pastor community is, what does it mean to schedule out your week for ministry? And there's been some great conversations around that. And I think the best thing to do is, you schedule out your sermon preparation time. That's one of the most important things that you're doing. You've heard my theory, the sermon is the most expensive thing in a church's budget. So you make sure you get that time and you defend that time like you were defending Helm's Deep. Like it's just there. So you block that time out for that fixed schedule there. But then you know what? You also have other things in ministry that you have to think about. You've got to think about meetings. You've got to think about what kind of meetings are you taking that week. Do you have regularly scheduled one-on-ones with people that are on your staff or your key leaders? Okay, get those scheduled in. Schedule in time to be open to meet with people and to talk with people. So when someone says, hey, can we have a conversation? You say, yeah, this is the time I have available. What works well for you inside of this? Okay, it just sounds like it's going to be a little bit difficult, but people are going to value the fact that you've got, priorities. I call it the Eugene Peterson trick. Peterson wanted to, he talked about this in The Pastor, one of his memoir, when he said that he wanted more time for prayer. So he just began scheduling it into his schedule. And when people would ask him to do things and he did not have the time to do it, he wouldn't say, well, I'm trying to pray more, so I can't do this. He would just say, my schedule simply will not allow it. And so, think about those blocks and make sure you get those blocks in that you need within reason. Remember, schedule to 80%. Now let's go even deeper here. Okay, this is definitely 301 level here. We're going to go to the next level. So say that you've got a specific thing that you need to be working on. Maybe you're still in school or you have ordination writings or that sort of stuff, and you need some time for big level work. Maybe your church is in a capital campaign or gearing up to a capital campaign, and that requires a level of focus and attention that's there. Maybe you're doing a lot of administrative or human resources work, and you're developing a new staff manual or that sort of thing. Those big looming projects that are important. What if you did this? This is kind of the big. What if you gave yourself a really solid block of, I'm going to call it like medium level, dealing time. You're doing all right. You're not at your best, but you're not at your worst. and you could move it around a little bit. But what if you took and blocked off like a solid afternoon every week? And when you know you've got some sort of bigger thing going on, hey, once a month, I've got 5 hours or 6 hours completely dedicated to this. So you've taken your fixed schedule and you've moved it from just beyond the day and then beyond the week, but into the month. And here's also where I think you could involve other people too. Like if you've got mission critical stuff that's going to involve, 2 or 3 leaders, for them just to know, okay, on the second Tuesday of the month, I go up to the church. They've got lunch for me there, and we're there till 5:00, and I'm going to work with this group of people, and we're going to really seek to solve like this issue or answer this question that we have going on. Or maybe it's like this. I've done this before. I coach other people to do this a lot of times. If you have a Sunday that you're not preaching, taking the time that you would that week to develop towards the sermon and throw it at answering a specific question or doing a specific task that you have. And if you're in a season, a growth phase in ministry, or you're in a church that is requiring a particular amount of your time, it might be you ask a leader, hey, can you preach for me every 6 weeks so I can have a week to focus on this thing that we're trying to learn or trying to do? So fixed schedule productivity works the 101, works the 201, works even at the 301. But the basic idea around it is that what does it mean to plan out your week in a way that gives really important time to things that really, really matter, but then blocks off time for other specific tasks, scheduling to that 80%. Now, this sounds easy and it sounds complicated at the same time, but like I told you in the top of the episode, I'm having to learn how to say no. And the way that I'm filtering my no's is just knowing this is how much time I have to invest in this right now. This is the time that I have available. This is the time I have for one-on-one coaching. This is the time I have for research or for development for other folks. This is the time I have to, record this podcast and do some of the other internet writing and the work like that is part of the larger Productive Pastor family. Saying no to things is a lot easier when I literally can see my availability for that right in front of me. And I think this is one of the practices that we think doesn't belong in ministry, but I've said all before, the biggest asset you have is the time to be strategic. And this is a great example of just really putting a knife edge to time and understanding how you can make the most of it. So that's it. Episode 52, Fixed Schedule Productivity. As always, come hang out with us in the Productive Pastor community on Facebook. Hit me up on social at Rev Chad Brooks. And always, it's just a privilege to steward this community. And I will see you around the internet.